I'm going to save the monarch butterflies. I can't save the monarch butterflies. So I thought about biodiversity and pollination. You need a bit of everything to, I guess, this space needed extra life because it was bare. It appeared bare. So I decided to just recreate this in a way that I guess would introduce some biodiversity and reinvigorate the land a little bit.
Where's the
I should do it, right?
I think you can just click on the screen.
try to do it? Go ahead.
Click here. There we go. So across the street from, I selected a plot, a little area that I thought would be perfect. That's where we first visited. And then we walked over to the pond and we saw the pond. And I went to visit there one day to take a look, to scope out the land. And I saw this pocket of land. There were six honey locust trees right next to the houses. And I thought this would be ideal for as a project. This would make a really nice project because the land is kind of like evenly distributed, and you have these great canopy trees that we can work off of. They're just equidistant apart. And I decided to focus on this little area here. And that's what it looks like. Just by eyeballing it, very dry soil. You're going to see a lot of bare branches. And if you cross the street, you're going to see a lot of honey locusts that are still on the tree, on the trees, on the honey locust trees. But over here, you didn't see any remnants of any kind. So to me, these look like 7 trees that are in need of a lot of love, a whole lot of love. And I guess the first diagram that I have is, I think, an overview of what the land looks like from the top. Which is, each little circle is representing a tree. So you have this huge slope down here, which is an area that we can probably play with, and a street. All of this is absolutely bare. And this little hole over here, there appears to be some kind of a tree that was pulled out or something. So this is something that we can probably play with a little later on down the line, or as part of the project.
I'm gonna make sure that they see your.
So, current state, we have dry soil. Trees aren't healthy. We got empty falling branches. We have a lack of diversity. So what we want to do is improve the quality of the life of these trees, and really introduce, because this is private property, right? This is private property, so you can't get buy-in without the community. You can't get buy-in without the landowners. You can't get buy-in without the landscape company. So you can't do this project without help. So we want to create a connection between the community and what will be the garden, the community garden. So that's kind of, those are the goals here. So the challenges, it's on private property, landscaping company, and there's absolutely zero immediate resources because it looks like the landscaper just kind of like stripped the land of everything that we can use to work with. So how do you fix the soil, and how do you introduce permaculture concepts on this land that is just kind of like, with a property owner that is kind of like fighting you? So that's the challenge here. So, this is kind of small print. I don't know, Crystal, Mark, can you see the slides? I guess.
Oh, did we not share? So sorry. Thank you for saying that. Okay. Now can you see him?
Oh, can we back up so they can see the
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Send them. Go back to the. Here's this.
So this is the land right now that we're talking about. You see, it's empty land. It has 7 trees, just kind of like equidistant and in a row. And my goal is to rehabilitate this plot of land and bring these beautiful trees back to life.
Are you seeing those okay now?
Yeah.
Okay.
But, so what is step 1? Step 1 is we want to engage you have to have the plan, right? And I guess that's what the next part of the presentation is. You want to engage the property manager about the health of the trees, engage their interest and rehabilitating them. And the assumption is they're going to say yes. You're going to establish a relationship between and an understanding with the existing landscaping company. And again, the assumption is they're going to say, yeah, this sounds like a great idea. All right, these are all assumptions. Then you want to engage the community. That's the tricky part. But what I think is of value with this community is that Dale, when he was visiting, I mean, he had a lot of friends in that community.
Oh, yeah.
He had a lot of friends in that community, so it was an engaged community. And if you listen to the people, they were all excited, and they all seemed to know a little bit about the land. There was not one house that he didn't knock on, stranger or friend, that didn't know the history of these trees. So there was an engaged community. Took that into consideration. So how do you engage the community? Well, you sell them the dream. And one way of doing this, improving the soil, I thought was community composting. It starts there, I think. Get the community involved, get them to compost, teach them about composting, and have a little plot of land to help them with that and engage them as much as possible. Then we incorporate volunteer gardening, and we harvest share. So this is part of the plan. I mean, this isn't, we're not phasing it out yet. This is just part of the dream. And then we wanted to design a space as well that encourages biodiversity and community building. So you're going to have the layers there: canopy layer, sublayer, a shrub layer, the herbaceous layer, ground cover. I didn't think about the vining because I didn't think I couldn't come up with a solution for that yet. But it's there. But importantly, what I want to do is create a habitat pond, because I think there's enough space for a habitat pond, and I think that I'll show you where I want to put it in a sec. That I think that would really be beneficial for this land, because across the street, that's where the magic is. You have ducks, and you have and there's this beautiful pond across the street I was imagining a place where ducks can roam back and forth and do their ducky things. But as well, seating area, a work for a harvesting station, and some walking paths. I mean, all these things are designed to help the community and bring the community into the garden. So that's the plan. So yes, I should talk about this as well. As I was doing my observation, I also took a look at the contour of the land. I thought was interesting as well. It goes on a downward slope, and so you have a downward slope, and then as you can see, there's like this little bump here where the trees are, and there's this groove in the middle, and there's another mound, but it's all going down on a slope. I think this poses an interesting challenge here, that with a little bit of earthworking, we can turn it into an absolute advantage for us. So when I think about this project unto itself, I mean, so let's break this up into phases. Buy-in, property manager buy-in. Establish a relationship with the landscaper and community buy-in. That's all phase one. You can do that in the winter, and that should be pretty quick. Phase two of this project is, I think, you would begin a community compost. You would strengthen the trees by using comfrey and some annual pollinators like sunflowers just to get started. And of course, the mason bees we're going to introduce. And then honey locusts are interesting because I don't think they make an ideal canopy plant, but I think it's what we have to work with. So let's work with it. It's what's been offered to us. So let the pods fall. Do not pick up the clippings. We want to introduce some wood chips. We want to create a path and introduce and start working and building out the habitat pond. This is all phase two before we even start the serious planting. And community workshops to get the community engaged. Phase three is when all the fun begins. We want to plant the trees, the bushes, the hugelkultur bed, and then we want to harvest. And what I think it ends up looking like is like this. And I say think because I think, because I've only been there twice, and I think to come up with a firm solution from a permaculture perspective when things are constantly moving is kind of difficult. So, and this is kind of what I struggled with as I was doing this project was where to put the ponds, how to place things, and I'm still not sold on the placement of this, but this is a working strategy here. So, you would have here are the 6 trees, right? So these are the canopy trees. Where that hole is, where they dug out probably that huge chestnut tree, I'm thinking about planting an apple tree, because if you want to engage the community wants something to go and pick from and eat, because it's engaging and you want children to be involved with it as well. So I thought an apple was a good idea. And I thought a nice hugelkultur bed would be introduced like right in the middle, because you have these trees that are falling, that these huge branches. You can use that to create the hugelkultur bed and then introduce some of the edibles and the medicinals all within there. Then we want the hazelnut bushes surrounding it, and I think that habitat pond goes in the front. I don't know how feasible that is. I don't know if there's any kind of like regulations or anything that we need to take into account, but I think that's where that would go. So canopy, you have the honey locust. Subcanopy is the apple and any kind of hazelnut bushes that we want to plant at the edges to kind of protect here. And around here as well. I saw a lot of deer. I didn't take a picture of the deer there. But there's a bunch of, when I was visiting the spot both times, I encountered a deer firsthand. So over here you have like wild wood, and I just saw deer just running back and forth. So we want to plant something here that kind of protects whatever we're doing from the deer and also feeds the deer. So we want pads, and we want pads for foraging over here. We want probably some potatoes and onions and garlics, and I call this Zone 1 because this is where I think where people will be doing a lot of their pulling in. I mean, if you think about it as a community garden, people are going to want to get their onions and garlics and their peppers and potatoes. This is where I think the area that they're going to be wanting to get it from. I think it's the easiest access. So that I call the Zone 1 back in here. You know, and ground, the herbs and the edibles along the path, and underground is kind of what I discussed here. So, and a little gazebo and planting area. So this is kind of
Can they see?
the dream. I don't think they can see it. Can they see it?
Can you see that mark in crystal?
I think they can see the screen.
He said they can see the
All
mark.
right, perfect. All right, so in conclusion, I didn't get into...
Oh man, our friend!
I didn't want to get into like the kinds of edibles and the shrubs and things that we can plant along the way, because as a community garden, I think we want to have a community input on that, and I think that's part of it. And I don't want to come in and say this is what we're going to do. I mean, I think a lot of this is fluid if we're going to open this up to people. But Earth Share Fair, people care. So we're improving the health of the trees. It's everybody's benefiting equally, and the community building and the ability to harvest. I think I'm done.
All right. There you go. Another outstanding presentation.
Thank you.
Mark and Crystal, do you have any questions for Rob?
Right.
Hold on, guys. I can't hear them.
Are you going to talk about that pretty caterpillar?
So that caterpillar has a story. Oh, and the one thing I want to say about the habitat pond before I go in, the idea I think as well, the habitat pond is to include the beneficial bugs and to create that energy that we want radiating within that space. I think happy bugs equal happy space. And that's a happy caterpillar right there. Yeah. And that caterpillar, Kalila was giving her presentation last week, and this caterpillar just pops up right next to the shell, and we're like, "Hello, I'm here." And so we stop the presentation, and we stop all the photos, and we stop all the speeches to all admire this beautiful caterpillar. And so I thought this caterpillar was part of the journey.
He's the cohort mascot.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, so Eddie, you
And you
got,
know what type of caterpillar it is?
you guys remember.
Friendly one.
Is this?
So what that is, it's spice bush swallowtail caterpillar
Yeah?
that feeds on spice bush.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's where we ended up putting them.
We said it was rare because of the color.
Sassafras, there you go.
Mm-hmm. So you guys
And
have,
a cool thing about that caterpillar is that it changes its color depending on the time of year. Like during the summer, it's green because the foliage is green. But then going into this time of year, as the leaves are changing, then they change. And I think that's a really cool example of adaptation.
Oh, nice.
see that?
Yellow. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Thank you for telling us that.
Yeah, because most of
I'm
them.
so glad you like gave that such respect because that's one of my favorites.
Oh yeah, we did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
More than.
With the caterpillar.
So you guys have any questions of Rob? No? Hold on.
the name of your farm?
Louis. I don't know, the Timber Falls Community Garden. I think it needs a name, so what name would you give it?
I don't know. I'll think about it.
I think Timber Falls Community Garden makes sense to me.
Yeah.
That's what I was thinking.
Okay.
Caterpillar Falls.
Actually, that's kind of cute.
That's kind of cute.
It's kind of cute.
Considering.
All right.
Because
So
that's kind of what we're trying to do as well, is bring in the bugs and
The
the
monarch.
diversity.
The monarch. That's
You said that there would be a pond in the front. Is that the collection point for the water since you said it's a downhill slope?
Well, I like, did I show that one thing with the hugelkultur bed? So, what I was thinking was this for the water. I think I did this far. Oh, here. So the reason why I wanted the hugelkultur bed is to give the trees a little bit of runoff for the water to go. So that pond I intend to be like just a still pond, just for frogs and for other like little bugs and insects to come, dragonflies. I mean that's turtles. That's kind of the idea of that. That's really the idea of that pond, is just to attract the good stuff, the good bugs. Yeah. But the hugelkultur bed will act as a little bit of, will direct the water as to go underneath the trees a little bit, I think. That's why I introduced that. Good question.
any other questions?
It was more like an observation. I wanted to commend Rob because I feel from day one meeting him to this point in class time and talk time and just getting to know him, I don't want to say I'm proud of you because I'm just really happy that your presentation was what it was, because in the beginning, you being a newbie was just like, I wondered what you were going to put together, and I was so happy to see the amount of observation, the amount of time, it makes me really happy when we're in an educational environment and people who don't have exposure like some of us who've been in the industry, to see the amount of effort you put into that and just being so absorbing of the information and the knowledge that was in this class. I just wanted to commend you on that because I'm just really happy for your presentation.
And this is an example to say to you guys. In the very beginning, I said, I'm not teaching you anything. I'm just helping you remember. It's all part of us, right? And it's just a matter of creating that space to allow that to come to the surface. So, man, you walk in the talk. Give me some.
Yep.
All right. All right. Great job. Great job. Great job.